screen. All right. One second. There we go. Okay, so someone holler if you can't hear this, but here we go. On the login page, select Login with BCCCA. Enter the BCCCA and password and press Continue. From the home page, we can view any new notifications. We can also look at any of the information for our locations. We can select Manage Institution, which allows us to edit location information. We can also manage users or view institution details. If we select Profile, we can view our personal user information. Select the person icon to log off. So that was just a very quick look at the basic part of the, one second. Let me get out of this video. All right, so that was just a very quick look at kind of the general dashboard for the new system. And as Haley mentioned, we will be reaching out to offer some one-on-one and small group opportunities to get into the system a little more. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to look at entering a program and an offering in the new system. And this is by no means training. The system is still in the works. So that'll be a little further down the line. We'll get you some support materials to help you learn the system, and then we'll be available as well for additional support. So as Haley mentioned, please save your questions until the end if at all possible, or put them in the chat, as the test environment tends to time out if we wait too long to go through things. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen again, and we'll just go step by step here. Okay, so like we saw in the video, this is what you see when you'll first log in. And on the left-hand side, you would have a list of any of your locations. And so for today, we're going to add a program for Victoria. And so this is a list of, as it's a test environment, you're going to see a lot of things that our dev team and our other staff have already practiced entering. So it won't look quite like this when you get your hands on it. And so this is the practical side of all of the information we went over on Tuesday. So for program name, we can just say that this is going to be a Bachelor of Science. And then, so anything with this little asterisk here is mandatory. So if we wanted a description, we could. And then we'll have a credential type. So we have an assortment of things. We're going to say this is an undergraduate degree because it's a Bachelor's of Science. And then zip code. So you're going to see a lot of different code types available here, but the only one that we need is the zip code. And then that's written in this format here. And this is different from the traditional SABC code, but we do have the option to use that if that's helpful for you to organize internally. So the NOC code, SABC code, and any other sort of institution program code that you may have can all be entered here. And again, we don't need these, but if it helps you to organize on your end, that's great. So will students be able to take this on a part-time basis? We have throughout kind of these little question marks that give us more information about what qualifies as a part-time program or any other sort of relevant information. And so we can say, yes, they are able to take it part-time. And then we'll be asked, how is it going to be delivered? We can do on-site and online. And so if we select online, it'll ask us if it's offered 100% on-site as well, and we can say yes to that. And then program length. So these are all of our options here. It's going to be a 4-year degree, so that would be 4 years to less than 5 years. And as I said previously, this is still very much being built, so you're going to see some interesting spelling and formatting errors. Those are going to be fixed down the line here. And then credit versus hours. And then there will be a list of regulatory bodies who oversee the program. And this, a lot of the drop-down lists are not 100% set in stone yet, so these options will change.
Hi, Katie. I think we lost your microphone.
I think so too.
Can you
No.
hear me?
Yeah, we can hear
Now
you.
we can.
There you go.
Oh, technology. All right. So where did you lose me?
Just
Right
after
after
the regulatory body stuff,
Okay.
where things will be
Okay.
changing potentially, but this
Yep.
is the regulatory information.
Yes, great. All right, so entrance requirements. So these are currently the 4 options. These may be reworked as well, but we have graduated from grade 12, 19 and older, and then some sort of entrance requirements established by your institution, and then BCITA. So we'll go with these for now. And then less than 20% ESL content. And if your program is offered jointly, you could say yes here, and it just is going to ask you if your partner institution is designated. And then we have work integrated learning. So we can say yes, and then it'll ask if it's approved. And then we can say yes there. And all of these are just to make sure that we're in alignment with SABC policy. And then is there a field trip? We'll just say no for this one. And then international exchange. And if we say yes, it wants to make sure that it meets the qualifications again. And then we confirm that it meets all of SABC policy. And we submitted a program. So if we go into it, we can see a summary of all of the information that we entered, and we can also edit it here, or we can add an offering. So what the student will see is when they go to select their offering, they'll be able to see this part, which is what we enter here for the name. They'll be able to see the study dates, which we'll enter later on. And so that's automatically entered, and then the year of study. And you get to select whether or not you want them to see the part that says their year of study, in case it's might be more confusing for them. So we will say 2022 spring and year 1. And then the offering will either be part-time or full-time, not both. So in this case, we're going to say full-time. And this one is fully on-site. And yes, there's work integrated learning. And so this is just a text box. So we could say practicum. And then here's where we enter study dates. So we'll say that this starts February 1st and ends in, let's say, May 31st. So immediately after that, we have study breaks. So this is anything that's more than 5 days and doesn't include end of the year. So we can either add a couple of them, or we can just say that there's no study breaks. And then the last thing is going to be study costs. So we'll want to know the actual tuition, any sort of program related costs, any sort of fees. So this is like books and supplies and such. And this is any of the associated fees that any student would pay, then any sort of exceptional expenses. And then this question may or may not stay here, but if you want to do tuition remittance. And then again, we confirm that that all agrees with SABC policy. And this is the joy of the test environment. Sometimes things don't work properly, but normally that would have gone through and it would have showed up. So I can find, just to show you here, let me find a program that has study offerings. So had that gone through like it was supposed to, it would show up a little bit like this, and then you would just have a whole list of all of the available offerings that students could select to enroll in. All right, so with that, I'm going to stop sharing for now, and we can take a look at potentially some questions folks have.
Thank you so much, Katie, for that overview and look at the system so far. Like Katie mentioned, there's a couple areas that are still going to be tweaked a little bit or being refined, but it gives a good idea of what that looks like. And we had a couple of questions coming in already. So Abdul, once submitted, will edit option be available to college? So Abdul, is that for the program level, or? Okay, well, assuming it is the program, when you submit, like you saw, if the program is adhering to those questions and policy requirements, it is a pretty quick process that goes through for approval, and then it'll be showing. And my understanding is that, assuming it's a program you've just entered that students aren't actively applying to yet, if you're going in and editing it, you'll have that ability to go in and make changes. Okay, program, yes. So that's the nice thing about this, is there will be that editing feature, and depending on the point of time, like in the process of from a new program to a program that students are applying to, that will kind of impact any kind of follow-up impacts that those changes have. What about, sorry, just checking the next one here. If breaks does not include end of year closures, where do we enter the dates our college is closed? So for breaks, we're having you indicate the start and end date of breaks during the study period. So only within a given study period when normal instruction is not offered. And we have 3 thresholds that you'll see in our revised policy language to help you determine what those breaks would be. So for year end, we're looking to definitely standardize how that's offered. And I think you'll see, so we're just kind of refining the language around this right now, but you will see instructions quite detailed in the admin manual, as well as the revised policy. So it'll walk you through how to enter and how to deal with the year end. Continuous intakes or changes on start dates. Yes, so we recognize that some study periods are more of a continuous intake model. They might not have set dates. In cases where it is more cohort based, then up to the institution, if you had enough students going into that study period and it's more standardized, you could enter those study periods on the program record. You can enter them right into the system, have students select those. If it's more self-paced and the start date is really up to the student, then there is an option that for them to select at the study period level, my dates aren't listed, and that will trigger a program information request where they can say, here's what I think my dates are, what I think my study period is, and it goes to the institution for review and to confirm. And if a student applies for a study period like that and you say, oh, actually, we're anticipating that a lot more students will also be entering these specific dates and costs, you can add that offering to your system record as well. Changes on start dates, yeah, slightly separate issue. So we're working out right now in kind of exceptions cases, what that will look like, and cases where we'll need an avenue for manual review, just if there is a change, particularly if it affects or causes reassessment. So again, we'll have instructions on that process. If one campus is located in Ontario, do we set up those programs here as well, or is it only for BC-based campuses? That's a good, Robin, do you have any kind of insight into that one?
I'm not sure exactly how the account setup will look if you have a BC campus as well as an out-of-province campus. What I can tell you is that this view that you're seeing, we are looking at having all institutions, regardless of location, be entering their program information into our system. So how that's going to look specifically for cases where it's a school that has, I guess, campuses in different jurisdictions, I don't know offhand. I don't know if Phil maybe has a bit more detail about that.
Yeah, so I think that, so basically, I think what you're saying is either we have to log in with 2 separate logins for the out of province campuses or for your BC campuses, or if it's just one login for all locations, no matter where they're located. Is that kind of the gist of it? Because then the actual filling out of the program information, so what we just saw, what Katie went through, is going to be the same for everyone, no matter where they're located, whether they're in Europe, Asia, BC, Ontario, it does not matter. It's all going to be the same for every single institution. It would just be a matter of how you log into our system. So I think the hope is that if your Ontario campus and your BC campus is all owned by the same legal entity, then the hope is that you will have one login and you will be able to see all of your locations or be able to add all of your locations. That is the hope. How that actually turns out, it's to be determined. We'll let you know how that interaction happens, but that is the hope. We're still ironing out a few things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Phil. And that raises a good point to recap that in the new system, you'll have your institution account and then you'll have the location account level for each campus location. So that's where you'll actually go in to enter those programs. Okay, next one is when we have access to the portal, do we see the information of our programs or do we have to enter them? So it sounds like that's more a question of like, are those kind of transferred over automatically? With this switch to the new system from SFAS, as far as we know, there's not really a data bridge set up. So we know that for this year, in terms of program input, this is the big year because this is the year where we're getting all those programs entered into the new system. Once they're there, as we mentioned at the last session, they're in there and you don't have to re-enter them every year. We do recognize that this year it's a fair bit of work and they're looking into on the technical side more what this is going to look like because we've heard a lot of questions about bulk upload and what that process will be. So that is in the works right now. So there should be more information forthcoming.
I'm going to jump in as well. I don't believe we are looking at taking programs out of SFAS and then just moving that data to the new system. So it's going to be newly entered data, but we don't know exactly kind of what options are available, if there's a bulk option, if it's, you know, one by one. So we're still looking at that.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think the reason for that also is because the way we've typically asked for program information and the way we're asking for program information now, there's a lot of different changes. So it'd be incredibly difficult to try and data dump the programs from SFAS into the new system. And so that's the reason why we're kind of going in this direction. And like Haley alluded to, it's a lot of work up front, but that core top program information will stay the same once it's in our new system.
Yes, exactly. So that will is a short-term pain for long-term gain kind of situation. And that is being looked at. So yes, thank you for that question though. The other one, oh, sorry to hear that, Rowena, some audio problems. I think from last time what Michael said is these recordings of the presentations can be sent out. So hopefully at that point you'll be able to rewatch with audio. Oh yeah, Michael got back to you already, perfect. So will any of the previous PED information be transferred into this new portal? Similar to what Robin and Phil were just speaking to, this is net new and it's quite a shift in how we're structuring and looking at programs. There's also some net new fields that we're collecting. For example, around SIP, for us that's new, and more breaks in study information. So it is a transition and technical team is on that. Okay, and this comment about Nova Scotia's system. Okay, related to the out of province. Thank you, Stella. Just to clarify, this entering of the program information is replacing the annual PED application. Yes, exactly. So what you're seeing there is more an example, what Katie showed of that manual process and what it would look like if you're going into our system, entering a new program. That's what you're doing instead of the PED. The PED is absorbed into that. So that is our big shift that's happening. And this question about the zip code, Eric, I'm not sure if there's anything specific, but that is something we're looking at aligning more federally, just to collect that information and have that field of study standardized info. So the SIP we saw as the best opportunity to do that and include it as a mandatory field. What we've heard is most institutions, I think particularly for the privates, already have this assigned. So it would just be a case of plugging that number in. For other institution types, you know, it's coming from StatsCan, so it's a very standardized list that's updated periodically. So that code will be the mandatory field. And as Katie mentioned, the SABC program code field is there. It's an option. Just in case, based on how you structured things so far, it's a helpful field for you to continue organizing your programs, but we are looking to phase that out over time. The NOC code applies more to the trades, so that's a little bit of a separate issue and also optional. And that institution program code field that you would have seen, as Katie mentioned, it's more if you have an internal code that helps you distinguish programs that may have a very similar SIP code or the same SIP code in some situations, then you can add that additional code to help you distinguish internally. Okay, so I think we're caught up on the questions so far. Is there anything else? We know this is a lot of information coming your way about the new system and a high-level look at it. But as we discussed, there will be opportunities coming up to sit down in a smaller group session with Katie and potentially Robin or myself or Phil, just to actually go through this and try a sample program and associated study periods, just so you can see what this looks like for your institution. What is the best email to use for questions? Yeah, actually, we could enter the mod project email maybe in there. If I don't know, Robin,
Let me
handy.
pull that up.
Okay, thank you. That would be excellent. That's a great email to just forward, and then they kind of triage the questions depending on the most appropriate area. Yes, there's some copy paste in people's future for sure. We recognize this is a shift of effort in a new area, but hopefully in a way that will really help to organize your programs by location, have that quicker approval in most cases. What we should note as well is that if a program does not meet the eligibility criteria as you're going through, there are flags built into the system at certain points to let you know, based on what you're entering, this is not actually eligible, and it will still let you complete the submission, but we'll put it into a pending state where it'll be flagged for review. So there is that in place as well. Thank you, Robin. Yes, so mod@gov.bc.ca is where you can send any other questions. How long does the setup take generally, from Michelle? Yeah, depending on your programs, the number of programs you're working with, and how handy this information is for you, it will be a bit variable. But as you just saw from that sample entry, going through, if you have that information handy, it's quite a quick process. And if your submission meets those criteria, the approval is quite quick as well. So once you have that approved program, you can go in and start entering associated study periods for approval as well. Yes, okay, so can I add a program to 4 locations at once? So there are a couple areas of enhancements that we're going to be looking at, because right now, as mentioned, it's institution account, location account, entering the program. So it's very much by campus location. What we've flagged for the UX UI team is that it would be very helpful to have the ability to copy programs between locations and potentially study periods as well. So that is on their radar. It's not built at this point, but it is something that we recognize would be very helpful. And Katie, your offer to show PIR, that I think would be great if people are interested. It's the program information request, and that's the process. So if a student has non-standard dates or kind of non-standard information, this PIR is like the Appendix 3 avenue that can get manually reviewed, and yeah, just offer another avenue for you to pursue. So Katie, if you want to get that set up and ready to go, yeah. We just have one more question. Oh yeah, the volume of programs. We know that this is the challenge this year with volume. What we're doing is we're putting together a template. We had a version 1 template out in the fall, and we're having a version 2 coming up that just overviews the fields that we're collecting and how we're collecting them. So that will be a tool coming out this month that can help assist institutions in preparing for program information input. And Katie, maybe I'll pass it over to you, and then we can always loop back on the other questions.
Sounds good. I'm also putting a link in the chat to the playlist of all of the videos I've made for the institution user. So this is all little snippets of things that you can do in the new system. As it's constantly changing, some of it may be a little bit outdated, but it does give you a look into what we've been doing. And it is an unlisted playlist, so you have to have the link to be able to access it, but feel free to share it with coworkers. I just noticed in here, in this test system we were in, that I had some program information requests we could take a look at. So under the institution, it'll have the option for program information requests. And when you click that, it'll show anything you've either completed or still need to work on. And so I can show you a couple of these. So after a student submits their application, if they either didn't enter a program or requested, different study dates, it'll generate this program information request. So we can see that this student we can see their name, what location they applied to, what their study dates are, and then the reason for this request, which in this case is they didn't select a program. They said, my program isn't on that list, and I'm studying capitalism in the 21st century. And they have the option to enter their own program description as well. So based on that, we can either press deny, which will cancel all the things on their end, or we can say, well, we know that that's actually part of the Arts and Sciences Studies program, and select that. And then all of the offerings for whatever program you select would be listed down here. And then we can select create an offering. And so we've said this is part of a different program. And then we look at their study dates and we can enter a study period just for them. And then the one difference with this one instead of the normal offering is you can add this to your list. So if this is one where you know there's going to be a whole cohort of students needing this particular study period, you can make it available to everybody. Or if this is just kind of a special situation for this particular person, you can make sure that it doesn't show up as available for other students. So that's what we would do for that particular program information request. And then for, I haven't taken a look to see what they did here. So they didn't select an offering either. So that'll be the same process. If the student doesn't select a program like the previous one, we can create a program specifically for them. So if we know that this is actually its own program and it's just not on our list,
it has to actually go through the vetting process. So we wouldn't be necessarily creating a program specific to a student. So it still has to meet all of the validations.
Yes, thank you for that. So we would be prompted to create a new program, and it would go back through the whole process that we looked at before. So those are program information requests. And yeah. Any questions on those? There are several videos on the playlist that I put in the chat going over different types of program information requests as well.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, we know it was mentioned in the chat too by Phil that this is essentially our modern Appendix 3 process. So it's kind of the workaround avenue in the new system. And if any questions regarding the PIR, please throw them in the chat and then we can work through them. And I think there was an earlier question, is this portal, so in this portal, could we see the COE and submit the funding approval? So that's something like in this system, what will be, I think, really good is that it's kind of all in this one place that you're gonna see this process happen. So from entering your programs and study periods to confirming enrollment, like the whole process is going to happen here. I don't know if anyone on the team wants to speak more to the dashboard side of it and how that looks.
And I don't know, I mean, I don't know how much more to add to that. We're making a move to primarily do our processes digitally rather than on paper whenever we can. So where there is still a paper process, we'll definitely highlight that information in our admin manual.
Yes, the admin manual is going to be an excellent resource for instructions and just you know, helping with navigating certain areas of the new system. So we'll have that content there. And there's a question here: if an error is made or corrections are needed, would the updates be made here? Or does it require a form? So wherever possible, we are moving away from forms. We're moving to this digital environment where you can either edit items that haven't been applied to yet, or there's functionality built in so that you're working within the system to make corrections. And of course, there's always that manual route as well. Like we've shown you a couple of ways where it flags manual review by us internally. So there will be those opportunities. Okay, the questions are quieting down a bit.
Haley, I just had an additional question there for Megan. Are you talking about errors made by an institution when inputting programming or study period information? Or are you talking about errors made by a student when they make an error, when they say they indicate that their study dates are not listed, and they indicate what it is, what they think their study dates are? So I just wanted to know the difference there.
Like if we missed something, or if a date was off or something changed.
Yeah.
All of this.
So if it's so it's like what Haley said, if it's a change, if there's a date that was input and then all of a sudden you catch it, or a student catches it and you say, oops, the offering that I inputted is different, you always have the ability to go in there and edit the study period offerings. You can edit those kind of things. Where it starts to get a little bit more complicated is if a student has already been confirmed enrollment and that application has gone through, and then all of a sudden you see the dates are different. We are still ironing out exactly at what points when will be required what, but the idea is that if there's a mistake made or there's some changes that need to be had, whether they're in one bucket or the other, there will be a digital process that can be done through this portal to correct that, rather than having to do a separate form.
Right. Okay. And then I think maybe the difference now is with this new system, all of that information will be in there and pulled down, right, automatically. Okay. So I think that will actually resolve some errors.
Yes. So anything you input there as the program and the study period offering will be available for the student to choose when they go in to apply. So if they go, my study period dates are not there, but you say, no, I actually inputted them. Through that process, you can say, oh, did this student make an error or did I make an error? And you can check that and correct that all in the new system.
Yes, thank you, Phil. And there's a question here. So this portal is replacing SFAS, but would there still be a window where those are accessible in case there are some glitches in the new portal? So in terms of contingency planning, I know this is a topic that's under discussion internally right now, and SFAS is not just going to be shut off at this point where we're switching to the new system. So it will, I can't speak to it in depth because I'm not completely aware of what's happening on that side, but I do know that because of concerns over just the amount of data that is in SFAS and historical data, particularly in cases where it's not going to transfer over, we do need to have some access to that resource. So in terms of institution access, I'm not sure the degree there, but I can tell you it's not going to be just cut off. It served us very well over many years. So.
But all of the work that we anticipate you doing when our new system is launched is going to be through this new portal. So there's some kind of implementation work around kind of that, okay, ending the old and starting the new, where there may be a little bit of overlap, but future state, this is your new portal where you access your information about your students and your program.
Yes, very important point. This is where the new content is going. And we know, like in SFAS, we just have some programs that have to, transition out. So this is the future of it. Okay, so any other questions coming up for people? Or can we see if a payment has been made to our bank? I can't speak to that. That's more the financial side, and again, we're on the program side. I'm not sure if anyone here in the team has had any exposure to that side more.
It's we're not changing the disbursement structure that BC has had. We're still on an integrated loan with the federals. So, and the National Student Loan Service Center is going to be issuing all the payments and loan funding to students, as well as those remittance that go directly to the institution, still through the federal side. So still through that National Student Loan Service Center. So any sort of questions you have or anything in terms of that, if payments are gone through, banking information, etc., that's all going to be done through the federal portal. So through the National Student Loan Service Center, with the exception of any certain grant programs. Like I believe, Robin, it's the BC Access grant that's still being issued through us, or there is some work on something. So there may still be certain ones, but the majority of them will be through the National Student Loan Service Center.
And that relates to, there's another question that came up related to the NSLSC. When SABC links to the NSLSC, is there anything we would need to do in the new portal? So again, I guess, Phil, like you're talking about in those specific circumstances, potentially for BCAG, but.
Yeah, for special circumstances, but from my understanding is that most of it will flow exactly the same way. So like when you went through SFAS and the disbursement was ready to go and you've confirmed enrollment, everything's ready. So on disbursement date, but prior to disbursement date, we'll send all the information needed over to national, however that linkage happens, and then that disbursement will go to wherever it needs to go through the national portal. So I guess to answer your question, there's nothing you really need to do. it's all technical on our end, on our back end, so you wouldn't have to worry about that.
Thanks, Phil. And
unless, sorry, just let me scoot in there a bit. Unless a student applies for interest-free through the national portal, then you'll still need to confirm the enrollment through the national portal. But from our perspective, confirmation of enrollment on our funding and all of that type of thing will happen through our portal.
Great. Thank you, Stuart. And yes, there's a question here about the date to start entering this information in the new system. So that date, I think we're hearing that it will be April is the targeted time frame. We're just not exactly sure, like in terms of institutions getting into the system and being able to start entering information. We just don't have a specific confirmed date at this point.
Yeah, we're trying to align it as much with when we send you when we previously sent you the email about starting to complete PEDs. We're trying to align that as much as possible. So like Haley said, April in and around there will if everything is ready to go, will be around there that your dates can start entering stuff.
Great. Yes, and there's a comment here about hands-on navigation. Yes, we're looking forward to the usage of this too. It should be fairly user-friendly, and I think an important note here to keep in mind is that what's going live is the minimum viable product, or what we're calling MVP. So as part of the agile approach, we're trying to get this as well positioned as we can and get as much functionality as we can, but it's the starting point, and then MVP, you know, things continue to evolve as we see how the system is working. It's a pretty dynamic process, so we can kind of assess how things are going. There's a question about SFT reports from NSLSC, seeking to confirm that those aren't changing, just hoodie. I'm not familiar with that myself. I don't know if Phil, you are able to speak to that, SFT?
Yes, so as we're in terms of reporting with Nationals portal, I don't know if they have any plans to change it based off of what we're changing. I would assume that they have nothing in plan, but that would be a very good question for them. They may not even know the answer up front, but as much as we know, we're sending the exact same information to them unless, you know, regardless if it went through PuTTY or if it went through our new system. So they should have all the same information to be able to generate the exact same reports. But I cannot confirm that because we don't work on the national side. As far as the reports that come out of SFAS or PuTTY, there was a lot of work done to look at all the reports that were generated to try and mimic those reports and have them available in our portal. There could be some slight changes. I cannot speak again, confirm if they're going to be exactly the same, but the hope is that we will have reports that will be able to tell the same story in the new system as it did in SFAS.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So I'm not seeing anything else so far. Thank you for these questions though, because they're, you know, this is a great opportunity, especially at a higher level, to just start thinking about the impact of this change that's coming. And with that opportunity in the demos, you'll be able to digest this for a bit and then come forward with any other questions that you want to raise directly with us as well, or via that mod project email that was entered in the chat. And as we discussed at our Tuesday meeting, the work in the policy manual, you'll specifically see some revisions in chapter 2 and chapter 15, especially, and you'll also see updates in the admin manual. So those two resources will be your the main ones to help guide you in terms of using the new system. Okay.
Okay, was there anything else then before was there anything else to present first of all, Haley, or are you guys pretty much through the presentation? Any other pieces?
I think we are through. I think we're all set.
Okay, good. Well, thanks everyone for your questions and your input, and thanks again to the team at Student Loans for coming forward and keeping us up to speed on this change. It's very exciting stuff. I'm sure all of us are really can't wait for this to happen, and there's a bit of work up front that's going to need to be done. Of course, it sounds like a lot of program entry, but once it's done, and then we can move on and enjoy all the great benefits the system's going to bring to us. As far as the recording goes, I'm probably going to take the same route that the student loan folks took, and I'll post it to a YouTube channel and send out the link to that YouTube. You'll need the link to be able to view it, of course. That'll probably take till early next week, as we're already at Thursday, but something will be coming along very soon. And I assume we can also look forward to some more updates prior to the official launch in April or May, or whenever it comes through. We'll be back again and give a chance for you to ask some more questions and get an update on the portal and see how it looks and see how it's shaping up. So I guess we'll call it a day. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and thank you again to the student loan team. Really appreciate your sharing this with us and keeping us in the loop, because I know there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of excitement around this project. So thank you all for coming, and we'll see you again very soon.
Great. Thank you.